I'm going to be introducing a panel of individuals from startup companies that are building talent in young ecosystems. So 2 of them are from Pittsburgh, actually, very young organizations. And as many of you know from hearing about how Pittsburgh has advanced, the talent that exists there is often very recent college grads and those that have were the recent college grads of the past 10 years. The growth in Pittsburgh is not a multi-decadal thing that has existed for a while, so there's not a lot of mid-career talent there. So we have a few very excellent panelists. The other is also from Atlanta, and I would love to introduce Brian Gaudio, Andy Chan, and Avant. How you doing?
All right. I'll fit on this couch.
Good, yeah, why not?
Let's do it. Get nice and cozy.
Well, thanks for joining us. And I'd love to hear a little bit about each of you, what your companies are, when they were founded, and your experience so far in getting them off the ground. And just, intro real quick.
So, hey, my name is Andy Chan. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called VAT based in Pittsburgh. We're a workplace safety company, so we work with heavy labor industries that have problems with a lot of worker comp issues. So we've created basically this platform of real-time feedback. We have a wearable device workers wear that collects their biomechanical feedback. It gives behavioral coaching as well as data to the safety supervisor. So instead of having to wait a year for audits, they get data in real time, fix problems before they become injuries. We started in end of 2015, so it's been about 3.5 years now. We work with about 10 Fortune 500 type clients, like they're over $1 billion companies. And yeah, to date we've reduced poor behaviors by around 50% in a population size of about a couple hundred workers. So, yeah.
Very cool. How big's your team?
Pretty small still. We're 3 people.
Great.
Yeah, super small, still bootstrapped. We raised some angel money, but a lot of it has been kind of bootstrapping it and just getting client money up front, and just knocking on doors and taking any route necessary to make it work. Yeah.
Fantastic. Brian?
So my name is Brian. I'm the CEO of Module. We are also based in Pittsburgh. We actually went through the same accelerator that Andy and VIT went through. And we're redesigning home ownership for the 21st century. Buy the amount of house you need today, add on as your family grows, income grows, needs change. So we're really thinking about designing a right-sized starter home focused on the urban infill, cities like Pittsburgh, that's able to be expanded upon as the customer's needs change. So if you have kids and you need more space, you can add another story, kind of like Lego blocks. So we're leveraging prefab construction technology. We have a digital platform sort of bringing the home buying process into the 21st century, thinking about ordering from Amazon. And we're leveraging those tools and techniques to create a better solution for home ownership here in the US. We're starting in Pittsburgh. We're about 3 years old, 7.5 employees. And yeah, that's a little bit about us.
How's that half employee doing?
Hopefully they'll be a full employee soon, bring him full time on.
Great. Doll?
Thank you. I'm Avant. I'm the founder and CEO of Aquagenuity. It's where water meets ingenuity. And we use data to help consumers, corporations, and cities understand what's in their water in real time instead of waiting for the next Flint public health crisis or economic crisis. And for me, the work started after Flint hit the headlines, kind of big headlines in 2016. And like most folks, I was really kind of shocked and trying to understand how this was happening in the United States of America. So I went back to my alma mater. I went to Harvard for undergrad, went back to the School of Public Health, discovered that there are 3,000 locations in the US with more lead in their water than Flint. A lot of other really interesting fun facts about what's really in your water. And a lot of people were railing against the government and seeing it as a leadership issue. And as a data scientist, I saw it as a data issue. So I said, there should be an app for this. And so I set out on what I thought would be a very simple journey to aggregate water quality data for the whole United States. It took about 2 years to do that, received a fellowship from NASA. Google has named us the world's largest water database. So we started the company in 2017, fast forward to today. my team is closer to 18 now. 18 folks. We're based in Atlanta, Georgia. We have consumer, corporate, and municipal platform. Because of the golden triangle, water is a shared asset, so we have solutions for all of them that are powered by our proprietary database. And for consumers, the app you just put in your zip code tells you what's in your water, what that means for your health, what kind of filter do I need, search real estate, restaurants by water quality. For corporate and municipal, we have about 83 cities around the world that are looking to work with us in some capacity, and about 30 of the Fortune 100 we're working with as well. So the Coca-Colas of the world, the obvious use cases, but also oil and gas companies and other folks are clients as well. So we are the future of water.
Great. How many people do you have on your team right now?
There's about 18 of us.
Great.
We just recently got funded. We haven't even announced it yet, and working with folks like the United Nations, so we'll be global in a minute.
Fantastic. And you're based in Atlanta. How long ago were you founded?
We started in 2017.
Great. Okay. So there's an interesting piece here. In ecosystems that don't have a lot of or serial entrepreneurs, we'll say, that are in their 50s and have turned into angel investors and can help mentor people and saying, oh yeah, I had that exact problem with this, my fourth startup. What's it like for you as founders? What kind of environment have you found, community have you found that's helping you grow?
For us, we've been blessed. In Atlanta, I would say we're kind of the second or third-ish wave of folks who have done really significant things in technology, have had at least one exit, 8, 9-figure exit. So it's a very small community though, but a lot of my mentors were kind of the first ones to do it, I would say, in our ecosystem. So we were able to learn from them. Paul Judge, Alan Nance, some of these guys have sold companies for David Cunningham, $500 million kind of exits, which is, hey, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
From where we come
I'd take
from.
it.
So we've been blessed to have those kind of mentors.
Great.
In Pittsburgh, the program that both of us went through in Pittsburgh was actually funded by the state. So the Ben Franklin Technology Partners, they have funding available to a specific organization in Pittsburgh called Innovation Works. So they get state money, they help startup companies start in Pittsburgh. And they've been around for, 20 years or so, Innovation Works. So I think that was the very first engagement with the Pittsburgh ecosystem, and I think they do a good job at the early stage. I don't know, Andy, you can talk to maybe other parts of the Pittsburgh community.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about. I think Innovation Works is definitely one of the big players. There's other smaller players called Ascender. But I think right now the Pittsburgh ecosystem is driven a lot by these nonprofits. So I think it creates a really interesting dynamic because on the surface, everyone is trying to help each other, and I really think they are. But kind of underneath the layers, it's very territorial as well, depending on where you kind of step on. You're like, oh, this is this person's turf. Oh, this is that person's turf. So I think that's a really interesting dynamic. But for us, I thought when I first started, and I don't know if you felt the same, Brian, but when I first started our company in 2015. I definitely felt this massive gap of just young founders. I think I could count on a single hand how many founders were under 25 at that point. And this was, so just kind of backstory, I left CMU at the end of my sophomore year to start the company. So I was I was 20 years old. And so I was just surrounded by, not that there's anything bad with gray haired people, right? But just, it wasn't a lot of that kind of youth. And so initially, actually, where I found some of my friend group is I just kind of cold emailed some of the other young founders in the Bay Area. It's kind of actually how I kind of first did it. And then, we were just pen pal buddies, and we just email stuff online until finally I went to the Bay and met some of them. But during this process, I think Pittsburgh has gone through a transformative period because, at least for me at CMU, everyone just left right out the bat to Google, Facebook, and everything. But thankfully, because the ecosystem has been growing, there's been more money, and Brian can speak to this too, where more and more people have been starting to stay in Pittsburgh. I think that's awesome. And for example, Brian, you were in, was it Dominican?
Yeah, I was traveling and boomerang back to Pittsburgh to start a company.
Exactly, and then your co-founder was in Seattle too, and then he came back to Pittsburgh. So there's this explosion of these boomerang, young people coming back, and then finally, I feel like we've found this kind of nice home in Pittsburgh of like young founders.
That's great. So it sounds like there's a pretty strong, I mean, everyone knows that CMU, everyone in Pennsylvania at least, is very aware that CMU is absolutely fantastic and produces a huge amount of talent. But it sounds like part of the challenge has been getting people to stay or to come back. I know one of the reasons why Atlanta's growth has been so strong is we outside of the Atlanta region don't often hear about it, but Georgia State and Georgia Tech, I mean, are fantastic. Georgia and Georgia Tech are fantastic, and they produce a lot of talent as well. There's a gap, though. I mean, you have mentors that have exited before. I know Coal Hill Ventures has interacted a little bit with the both of you. I'd like to hear a little bit about your experience being sort of learning more about how to scale the technologies that you've created. And you know, it is a lot of people have this idea, have a great thing, but don't know the process to make them grow.
I'd say it's something we're actively figuring out, right? We're raising a seed round right now, so we're a seed stage company, and we're working through finishing our first home for a customer, actually. Right now, tiling's going in, appliances are being installed today. So next Thursday, we actually have an event. We're showing off our first open house of the first home we've built for a customer. So we haven't scaled yet. We've got one customer under our belt. That's
Absolutely.
and for a startup, for a customer to give the largest purchase in their entire life to a startup, I think that's a challenge that we had to overcome. I think in scaling up in non-Bay Area places, the key question is access to capital. You see the seed rounds, now we're gonna get in a little bit of startup lingo, or I will. It's easier and easier to get $50,000 checks. I saw Arch Grants was giving out $50,000 checks, I think from St. Louis. They were speaking about that earlier today. And so more and more companies are getting sort of angel type money invested into them. But the funding rounds are now getting bigger and bigger, and that's driven by the Bay Area. So that's driven by where VentureBeat exists, where the largest accelerator, sort of the preeminent accelerator in the US, Y Combinator, just had their next batch of companies launched. I think that was last week or 2 weeks ago. And they're raising rounds that are bigger and bigger. So the Bay Area is bringing up the kind of the stakes of the game. And a lot of the companies that are in non-Bay Area places have to figure out, in a smaller market like Pittsburgh, how do we size a seed round versus a seed round in the Bay Area? So I think that's still a big challenge, is getting more companies through seed, through Series A, through Series B in these non-Bay Area places where we don't have the money that the Bay Area has. We've got the talent, it's cheaper, you can run the same company with twice the employees in Pittsburgh than you could in the Bay Area, but I think that access to capital is a challenge for companies that are in non-Bay Area markets.
One of the ways that we've leveraged and kind of overcome that, because I almost moved my company about a year ago to San Francisco. I mean, I was this close to moving. Everybody, both because that's where tech happens, but also because, we're in water and health and wellness, and that's a very West Coast kind of industry. But, understanding how water affects all of us in so many different industries, and it's, most of our folks are really industrial and almost manufacturing and really old school type industry. But we were able to overcome the challenge of being in a market in Atlanta. They typically invest in fintech and cybersecurity, and even MarTech is really big there. But we were able to use our story, our passion, our why we do what we do. As a way, literally the world is coming to us. We haven't done any outbound marketing yet. We haven't done our launch event yet. Haven't released a press release yet. And, Google and Forbes and did the TED Talk, and all these different opportunities have come because we're able to leverage our story and why we do what we do, and really resonate with people in that way. And it's allowed for us to get attention in the market, in our market, that we might not have otherwise gotten.
I think anybody who was paying attention this morning will see a corollary there to what John was talking about with his company. And a lot of people think that you can't get talent to move to York from other places, but give them an opportunity to change the world, and they will jump. So there's that. I'd like to understand a little bit about the teams that you've hired. specifically and where they come from, and what the process has been like for that. I know, I think you said that your two other employees came out of CMU as well?
Correct, yeah. So I'm definitely guilty of this because I know you're supposed to diversify your hiring pools and stuff like that. So I definitely need to do a better job because most of our hires came from CMU because it's just, I think it was just sheer laziness, right? Where you're like, oh, where do we need good developers? I guess we'll call up our professors at CMU and be like, hey, what you got for us? You know, like you got some good like mobile dev people. All right, cool, send them our way. So I do need to do a better job of that, of tapping into other ecosystems. But yeah, a lot of our hires initially came from CMU.
Andy mentioned one of my co-founders was in Seattle, and I was working through that problem right in Pittsburgh. How do you know, so Drew, one of my co-founders who I'd known since college, was living in Seattle, working as a product designer, loves the outdoors, loves hiking, and he's a coffee snob, right? So he's like in the perfect place in Seattle. And so I had to find the right way to rope Drew to moving to Pittsburgh, and it took a while, right? I had to take him to the Penguins game, like he's a hockey fan, so he came in, we took him to the Penguins game, and slowly like it was chipping away. But how I eventually convinced Drew to quit his job and come to Pittsburgh was we got into South by Southwest and the finalists for their accelerator pitch competition. So this was 2017. And I'm like, Drew, we need to prep for this thing because we have to get on stage, we have to talk about what we're doing, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity there. So I'm like, you need to spend 2 weeks in Pittsburgh. And he's like, all right, I'll do that. So that was the time to get Drew to Pittsburgh. And then, we said there are going to be investors in the room, and if they ask who's kind of in the core team right now, we need to know where you stand. So think about that. And then the next day, he walked into the office and he's like, all right, I'm quitting my job and ready to go. So you have to find the right timing, I guess. And that's how we were able to get him to Pittsburgh. And he's kind of, Pittsburgh's grown on him, so.
And the other 6.5?
Carnegie Mellon, a lot of CMU folks, one University of Pittsburgh person. Through interns, we had some internships with certain folks from CMU. They eventually joined our team. But yeah, I'd say our university is a really strong suit for us.
Were you hiring right out of school or sort of, after a couple years of experience?
Majority are masters, so finished their master's degree and we hired them. We have our first person we hired from DC area, gray hair, who was an architect there, was working in doing residential infill projects, and they came to Pittsburgh. So they're probably the first, I would say, sort of finishing up their master's person to join our team.
Great.
Yeah.
For us, our age range is from the millennials and kind of just graduated all the way up to, we have a couple of folks who are pretty senior in their career. The vast majority are, I would say mid-career, but everybody on our team is a rock star. Literally, top 1%, the sales guys or, the president's club or whatever, that top echelon of sales folks at Fortune 100. And, literally the best developers and they have the nationally, people are trying to get them to work for them. And so again, I would say our mission and kind of our roadmap as a company is what is attracting folks to leave, some of them 6-figure jobs, and come and work for us. Because, it's not just an app that we're developing, but we're literally changing the way people interact with their water. So the water score is similar to a credit score, and corporations can kind of judge and track their ability to manage water as an asset. It's changing industries. Insurance companies use our data to change the way they assess the value of farmland. Home Depot wants to pull the data from the API and display it on their smart refrigerators, like the water score in the area, the Weather Channel, Comcast. I mean, there's just so many different applications here in the developing world for cities to have a sensor grid that's sending real-time data about what's in your water. So the same way you have a weather forecast, now you have a water forecast. So people can kind of see, wait a minute, if you pull this off, you're a multinational, multi-billion-dollar entity. And I'm like, yeah, we're doing that. And that gets a lot of folks really excited about, just protecting people's well-being and their health and improving quality of life and preparing us for the 21st century. So in the 20th century, all this data was kind of siloed and no one knew what was going on until a scandal happened. And I say the 20th century is dead. So in the 21st century, transparency is the new currency. And so if we make that data accessible and democratize, and make it that data. We have water quality as well as air quality inside of our app. If we have better information, we can make better decisions, and then that drives innovation. So we'll have our own hardware, our own water filters, our own, so we start now as the Google of water. You search, then we're kind of the Amazon of water. We have a curated marketplace. Eventually we become the Apple of water and have our own hardware. So people kind of get with that vision.
That's great, yeah.
They join us, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think that understanding how businesses scale in different markets is very important to understanding how people can support that. So, feel free to corner them throughout the rest of the conference and pick their brains a little bit. But right now we're gonna transition. If we could get a big round of applause for these three, and